Okay, Marty Ingles on
Yes, sir.
internet security.
I mean, it won't just be internet security. I mean, we could talk about computer security too, but my main forte, my last 20 years of my career was internet security. So if anybody has any other questions, I might be able to help when it comes down on the computer side, but most of my experience is on the internet side. So, I'll talk about a few things. I hardly encourage you, if you have any questions, if you've seen anything, or if there's something you want me to delve into, I can. Even though I focus on internet security, I've been working with computers in some form or another since the early 70s. So if you want to discuss basic computer concepts, I could take you down as far in the weeds as you want to go. But I don't think anybody wants to, but if you did, we could talk bits, bytes, binary, hexadecimal, and all that good stuff, and flip-flops and all that good stuff. But focus of today is going to be basically internet security. Now, a lot of things I'm going to say are going to be common sense. You may already know it, you may have already heard it, you may already be doing it, but just a few things that you may not be aware of. I'm kind of jump, even though I said I focus on internet security, but a part of what I did too was filtering, web filtering, and part of that filtering was anti-malware, antivirus type programs. And I thought about this as probably something I want to address. First of all, operating systems. Tom, I know you got Windows, Linux, and such. Do you know the operating system on your computer?
Windows.
Windows? Most likely. Joe?
I've got Windows 10 and 11.
Windows 10 and
Depending on
11.
which computer.
Oh, and what do you think
I've
of
also
them?
got some virtual computers too, so.
Yeah.
Pretty good version.
Yeah, sweet.
Windows 10.
Windows 10, you know.
I played with Windows right up to 10 and Server 12,
Oh, Windows Server?
Windows Server, right?
Okay. Good
Got
deal.
another Windows Server operating systems all the way up to 19.
Yeah, last server I worked with, I think, was 12. And that was standing up virtual machines in my lab.
It's due for retirement coming up very soon.
Sweet.
It's in the retirement bin, so.
Now I'm curious, in what capacity did you use Windows Server 12, 2012?
I'll start with a little of my background. I was a help desk analyst for Niagara Mohawk.
Okay.
Funneled all the computer problems that people in the company were having. We had servers at work, and I had to have one to play with at home. And I tried running one at our fishing game club to house all our records, but some of the records were not like you'd find on a mainframe computer. You could only have one entry, one exit, so there wasn't a file sharing format there. So the server was really just extra baggage on the network.
Yeah, just something to play with. All right. I'm assuming Windows too?
Windows.
As well. And you, Joe?
Primarily iOS,
Okay.
and I just started on Windows 11,
Mm-hmm.
and I also work with Linux.
Linux, okay.
Linux Mint 19.3.
No Apple users in here.
Well, I am an Apple user.
Oh, okay.
iOS.
Oh, iOS. So, as far as Apple goes, as far as basically computer security, Apple tends to be a bit more secure. Most of the big hits, first of all, if somebody's going to do an exploit, they're going to direct it towards the best possible gain. So you've got a much larger percentage of Windows systems out there than Apple. And Apple also does a much better job of vetting what can be run on their systems. So if you want to be in the App Store, you've got to actually pay Apple to, certify that there ain't nothing wrong with it. There's no malware and whatnot. And Linux, that's a whole different ballgame when it comes to security. So we'll just focus on Windows for today and the internet. And where I was going with the whole malware thing, how many people here have some version of some version of anti-malware, antivirus running on your systems? Okay. Now, just one thing I'm going to point out, because I know I've had people approach it like this who weren't all that computer savvy. It says, where I go to on the web, I don't worry about because I've got antivirus on my system. Now, antivirus, your typical, all the manufacturers, Norton, McAfee, whatnot, they are all what you call reactive technology. And what that means is it ain't going to be in there until they've already seen it and come up with a signature for it. or a hash word, so that if it's something new and in the wild, most antivirus programs aren't going to catch it. Now, there's some exceptions. They do build some what's called heuristics into it, and these heuristics could be looking for abnormal behaviors, like a program like doing a call to the network on your house or something like that, which would be unusual. Wouldn't normally do that unless it was had bad intent. So it's kind of if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck, it's a duck, so it's probably a virus, and they'll catch some of it that way. But it's part of your security kit in a computer. It's not the end-all be-all. It's not going to protect you from everything out on the web. So when you're using the web, and again, I may be just talking common sense here, but be very careful. So, if you or go do a search on something, first of all, when you do on the major search engines, never go on the first or second lines. They pay the sponsor to put their stuff up higher. And when you do click on something, look at the whole address. I mean, there are sites, and I've had it happen to me, where I got careless and I didn't read it exactly, and the name was very similar. It was a number instead of a letter in a certain spot. And so you got to be careful. And you maybe say, yeah, that's the right site. And you go to that site, it might look exactly like the right site. But again, it could be all set up for delivering malware to your system. And also, use your good judgment. Web, that's one vector. The other vector would be email. When you get email, if it comes, you get email from somebody you haven't heard from in quite a while. Hey, thought you might like this, check this out, and it's a link or whatnot. Or hey, here's a PDF attachment, thought you might find this interesting type of thing. What those are they can come from everything. It might say, if you look at that email, it's from this person. That doesn't mean that it's from that person, number one. Number two, their account, be it Facebook or whatnot, might have gotten hacked, Yahoo or whatnot. So be very careful on that. If you get something like that from a friend, this person, don't even respond to the email. If you have another method of reaching out to them via text, via instant message or whatnot, verify that they sent that to you. Because, like I said, that attachment could be malware. That link could take you to somewhere that'll, boom, download malware onto your system automatically. So be very careful, use common sense for those kind of things. If you see, just kind of an example of how this kind of works. Did anybody follow up or hear about the Sony hack that happened back in 2013, 14 or whatnot? Okay, North Korea hacked into Sony's system, big time. And they actually, they pulled off a lot of stuff and created a lot of havoc in their system. Again, it was just a very simple, common metric. Like I said, you get two vectors, you got email, and you got web. And exploiting one or two of those, got them into this network. And once you get somebody on the inside, unwittingly download something under the system, the game over, it's the same thing under the home network. So as far as your computer goes, the biggest pain about it, to worry about being hacked is that, it's going to screw up your system and you're going to have to, clean it, get it cleaned out somehow. And sometimes, if you get a rootkit down deep, and I'll explain that in a second, you might just basically, the best way to approach it is reformat, reinstall your system. That's the only way you're going to get rid of it. Now, I talked about malware and virus. Rootkits are malware, but they're kind of a different approach than what a virus would take. They'll blow right through if they're crafted properly. They'll blow right through normal antivirus programs. So, again, if you do ever run into something and you can't get rid of it, you can reach out to me. I've beat on a few of them and got them rid. My favorite one is Malwarebytes, because you get a free. They'll give you a free 2-week whatever. You run a scan, and I've caught a number of them with that. The Malwarebytes, I think, is one of the best of them. Okay, so that's computer security. I'm kind of babbling. Anybody have any questions on what I've covered so far? Anything you like to add?
There are some gotchas. You want to make sure that you don't install 2 virus programs at the same time because they'll compete with each other.
That's true.
And good general practice is if you're going to be clicking on anything on the web that's asking for your personally identifiable information, if we all know what that is, your name, address, social security number, any kind of account numbers. Generally, your banks won't ask for that stuff, they already have it.
Yep.
But if you do need to supply it to check on things or to apply for certain things, always make sure up at the top it says HTTPS. That means it's a secured site.
Now, good thing about.
Not 100%, but at least you're doing some diligence to try and protect yourself.
Yeah.
And then the patch Tuesdays, every first Tuesday of every month. Everybody says, oh, Microsoft is always sending downloads and always want me to update. And, well, they only do that once a month. And they do it on the first Tuesday of the month. So usually following that, your system will want to update. If you do follow those, a lot of times they're patching against some of those attacks. They're also updating your malware and your other virus definitions along with that. So it's a good idea to keep up with that policy. Even your iPhone and your Android phones and stuff, they often have icons saying that, you know, these apps need updating. And a lot of times it's bug fixes, and some of those bug fixes are actually fixing known attacks or known vulnerabilities on your operating system. So,
Yeah, you know, it used to be back in the day, HTTPS sites, basically encrypted, so that once you're on that site, somebody, if they were in the middle of that stream, couldn't be seeing what you're doing, what credentials you were entering or whatnot. Used to be maybe 40% of the web. I think it's got to be dang near 80 or 90% by now. Yeah, it's rare I find a site that's an HTTP site.
I think what I struggle with now is that when I go to websites, they're asking about accepting cookies.
Mm-hmm.
And you never know yes or no, because it could be an exploit just the same.
Could be.
So,
And
that's the one I kind of struggle with at the moment.
okay, the certificates are another issue because even the best of companies out there do a dang poor job of managing their certificates. So what a certificate is, if you go to a website and it's going to create an encrypted path, it's got to serve up a certificate. And if your system, the browsers, they've got them very tight now. Firefox, you know, they're all great at it. If it sees a mismatch on something, like, wait a minute, this certificate is expired, or this whatnot or whatnot, it's going to say, nope, I'm not letting you go there. That's not right. So the bad thing is a lot of valid companies, you know, they just haven't done their due diligence or their maintenance, so it can cause some issues too. So let's see, you were going down a path there, and I wanted to talk about that.
That was about cookies, accepting cookies.
Accepting cookies. You know,
They're starting to get more prevalent about that.
Yeah,
When you use the site, accept the cookies, and do you want,
I don't even
Gives
know if
permission
I'm
to see your
supposed to
ads
or
and
not, and
everything.
I live with him. I just asked him.
exactly, a lot of times if you can get around it, I try not to.
Yeah. I
That
always-
just,
you
what a
can.
cookie is it means when you go back to that site, it already knows some things about you, so it's not gonna ask you again.
but if you just totally disregard cookies and say, I'm never going to use them, I mean, you could do that, but you're going to make your, you know, if you do a lot of things in the web, like banking and, you know, logging into your healthcare system and whatnot, like, if you can selectively accept those cookies for those sites and just only accept cookies for those sites, but I honestly myself, and it's probably not very security conscious of me, I just don't worry about it, and I just accept, you know, let them, next time I come in, I don't want to have to log in, I want my password to pop up, I want everything to work, and I don't have to deal with it. But, like I said, there's caution, I guess.
Well, some of those, if it's sites that I go to a lot,
Mhm.
and that I know they're trusted
Yep.
sites, I'll accept the cookies, because I'm gonna be there again. A lot of times it's when I'm following like off of Facebook or off of something else where I'm going to another news site or looking at an article that came up, you know, hey, this looks interesting, but it's wanting to give me cookies. If I don't have a real solid reason for following it, I may not accept the cookies, and if it'll let me read past it, great. If not,
Yeah,
it's more just junk to me instead of
true.
being concerned.
So, let's see, I'm trying to cover, I should have written up a list, but I figured, I'm used to talking to a presentation, so my talking points are there and I don't get led astray or whatever like that. In your email, I was talking about that. When it says it's from a certain person, when your email is presented to you and you open that up, think of email like you would regular mail. And let's say what you see up there, that's the letter you took out there, and let's say that letterhead is that person's name. They say, oh, it's from them. If you look inside email, outside of email is what they call the envelope. And in this envelope, it has the real from address. And for the most part, unless you're working in a corporate environment, if the from doesn't match the from that's in that what you see, if there's a mismatch there, that usually means something of ill intent. Somebody's trying to disguise himself. That's not always the case. Like, if you work in the corporate world or whatever, sometimes they outsource their healthcare thing, so then emails look like they're coming from your company, but they're actually coming from your healthcare provider that the company works with, so.
Sent on behalf of.
Yeah, on behalf of, those are valid, but for the most part, you can actually see the whole envelope. Well, I don't know if you can at all. I've got Outlook.
Depends on your email provider.
Yeah, I've got Outlook, my Outlook client, I can see.
Outlook you can.
Yeah. I would imagine Mozilla does, that's maybe,
Well, Mozilla isn't an email account, that's a web browser.
right,
But
but,
then if you go to Gmail or some of the others, whenever you see the email, if you click on email, it'll actually open up at some point, you can dig into it, and it'll tell you whether it's from that actual user or not, or you'll see a big long string of gobbledygook at the end. Those are the ones you wanna be careful of, because that's spoofing an email address.
right. And another thing you'd be aware of too, and I know, Tom, I told you about this, but if you've ever, we used to call it executive spam, because, people would go to these conferences and give their cards, and so boom, they'd be getting all this email in there like that. But very often, they'll say, oh, you can opt out of that. You'll see if you're getting things from, I don't know, stores and stuff like that, you're tired of seeing this email, you don't want to get it anymore, there's a nice convenient little unsubscribe button at the bottom. Be very wary of those. You don't know what link is under there. And you can get an email that looks, hey, but it's from Kohl's. Oh, yes, obviously from Kohl's. It looks like it's from Kohl's, it says it's from Kohl's. Well, I just want to unsubscribe because I never wanted to get these emails. And you click there, again, there's a link underneath that button. You don't see the link, you just see the unsubscribe button. So be very wary of clicking the unsubscribe button. That can lead you down a bad path.
Exactly what happened to me.
I know, exactly. So,
Exactly.
A cheap trick with your email, to make sure it's not sending out through your contact list, create a fake email address, 0000catchme@foobar.com. That doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. If you see that bounce back at you, you know that somebody's hitting your.
I actually have that on mine too.
Yeah.
At the very first one on my list.
That's just an old school.
Weird, yeah.
Trick. So you can sometimes catch emails that are being sent out from your space, or going through your contact list, because you get that bounce back, and that lets you know you need to start taking action or start taking it pretty quick.
Well, one of the new ones that I noticed that's out there, I saw it, is, I think it's through Messenger, but it comes up and it'll say, it'll be from, it'll say it's from my dad. And it'll say, is this you in the photo?
Oh, yeah.
And if you click on that,
I've
you're
noticed a
done.
few times.
You're done, so don't.
Bye-bye.
And I know my dad, I know for a fact that my dad never sends me anything in Messenger, so I knew right away not to, but, get a hold of that person and say, did you send me something, And, cause if you click on it, once you open up that video or whatever, you're done.
I send Marty mail and he calls me on the phone and said, "Did you send me this?"
Yeah, we do. I know when you do it.
Depending on your email user, or,
Well,
which
just- we just need-
provider, like Outlook, you can set up Outlook to, unless it's on your approved list or in your contact list, it won't come to your inbox, so you'll always have to go search your junk mail,
Mhm.
and then approve somebody first. That's kind of a long way around, that's pretty laborious in only approving the people you want, but it is an option.
I think I've got northwards of 60 rules in my Outlook for dropping in different folders, and after a while, it's just, even with those rules, something triggers it, next thing I know, that's not junk, I actually wanted to get that. Where I was going to go with this next one here. First of all, has anybody here gotten, well, I think all of us have in some way or at some point gotten hacked, but does anybody have any stories they'd like to share about times that they dealt with getting hacked, or?
Oh,
Well, I had the Kohl's.
Okay.
I had that Kohl's issue last year, and I finally was able to reach someone at their corporate headquarters and explained that I had received this, and there were all kinds of offers in there, all kinds of things you could buy.
Mm-hmm.
And this was Kohl's heading and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And what he said was, we're aware of it, we're working on it right now. Don't respond to anything in that email. which unfortunately I had already responded to.
Okay,
I bought a camera. And when the camera came, it was like a toy camera. Little bitty thing, just a little bitty toy. And then when I tried to reach somebody, I couldn't, I of course called Kohl's.
mhm,
Kohl's said, the local Kohl's store says, hey, we know about that, but that's not us.
gotcha.
So, at any rate, you know, I bought the farm on that, but
There you
it's
go.
the way of it.
So, it's
Other
just,
people have done that and got like supposed to be a chainsaw, and they got a little pocket knife or
Yeah,
At least you got something.
Yeah.
yeah.
you know, I was having this discussion with Tom over here.
That's the question.
Yes, sir.
I got a story.
Go ahead.
On Instant Messenger, one time I got a message from Ted, who used to be in the radio club, and he moved up north. And said, he just texted me, said, how's your family? And I said, fine. I said, how you doing? Oh, great. He said, by the way, have you checked Publishers Clearinghouse lately? And I said, no, I never check it. And he said, oh, you gotta check it. He says, I got money from it, you know, go to this site. I did, it wasn't him, somebody had hacked his account. And of course, right away, it evolved to the point where they wanted me to send in money to get a truckload of money. So, I mean, I caught on right away, and I called Ted, and he said, yeah, I know, I've been hacked. But
So a couple of points of order. It's not exactly internet security, but I know some people in the park who got hit by this. Microsoft will never call you to tell you you need to update. Microsoft will not email you to tell you need to update.
they kept calling, I kept hanging up.
Very good. So if you get somebody calling, you know, you can either just hang up on them, or you can be like Tom over here. He likes to play games with them and try to lead them on.
Oh, I have fun with them once in a while.
But, so that's one thing. And secondly, and we already pointed out, your bank is not gonna email you to tell you you've gotta take immediate action with a link to go in there. If you do think it's legit, opt out of that email, go to your website, their real website, and they'll have a secure message there for you if that is the case, but that would not normally be the case, so.
I've even gotten calls from the IRS collection.
Yeah,
That's
oh,
another
and,
scare the crap out of you, right? Oh, well, go to this, if you don't believe me, go to this site and look it up, and they send you to the
yeah.
IRS
Oh, yeah,
government site.
that does.
I could guide you to that. That doesn't make me who I say I am.
Yeah, right.
So, they shouldn't be asking you for information that they already know.
So-
They need
See it
a
all
way
the
of
time.
identifying themselves before you.
Some anecdotal information here that, well, it's kind of about internet security, but, you know, we all think we're being very careful with our social security number, never give that out. Never give out, you know, your credit card numbers, you wanna protect those, protect your, you know, your PII, your personal information. But we were at our annual sales conference when I worked at Force Point, and they had brought in a guest speaker. And you may be familiar with the name if you follow that kind of thing, but it was Kevin Mitnick. If you remember back in the mid-90s, they caught him big time. He was hacking into phone companies, he had downloaded all kinds of, you know, proprietary software and such like that. He ended up getting 8 years in prison for it. So when he got out, he now leveraged that to become a consultant, a security consultant. So the presentation he gave us, he says, if you've heard of the dark web, you're familiar with that. So the dark web, basically, if you do a search on your normal Google, the dark web isn't gonna come up. But, you know, if you have a way of accessing that, you know, through a secure channel like BitTorrent or what, not BitTorrent, Tor, whatever, you go to the dark web, and you can go to places, and you've probably read about it. You can buy drugs, you can buy all kinds of stuff you shouldn't have, and like that. So he logged in. He says, I paid, this was 2015, so I think he said about $8 a month for this service. He says, what I'd like you to do, anybody volunteer in the audience, and, you know, a few people said, okay. He says, okay, sir, he has it come up, not looking at the screen, give me your name, give him his name, and give me your address. Give me your address. He typed it in. He says, he has him look, is that your social security number? He says, mm-hmm. They're, all this stuff, I mean, they're typically, you know, you don't want to blame all the normal actors, but estimates of what they have in Russia, shoot, the last time I heard it was like probably a fifth of the US population. They had all the information on, all social security numbers, all that stuff.
There was just another big leak here not too long ago, this week.
Yes.
So whenever leaks like that occur, I mean, people, I mean, that's a professional business. He's subscribing to a service where he could look that up for anybody. So,
And when that company leaks your information, they're responsible for actually reimbursing you or providing you credit protection.
yep,
So there are times when, if it's occurred and you know you work with those people, you can contact them, they offer you credit protection. So you can go through Experian or any one of the facilities and they'll pay for it and do the credit monitoring. So that's how you know what's on the dark web. And it offers $1 million in protection. You still gotta go through all the hassle, but.
When I was working for the Department of State, OPM had a major leak, and it's been maybe 15 years since I worked for them. They still pay for my identity protection.
that's good.
Because it was, yeah.
Well, I got I got hit by the Home Depot hack.
Home Depot, T-Mobile.
Oh, there was a health care system, I forget which one, that one up in Ohio. Anyways, they got hacked. Again, I got another year of identity management. I said, yo, just keep hacking these people. I get all this like free identity management protection. There are services like that too. I mean, it's not a bad idea. I know Norton's all the time trying to get me to, you know, subscribe to their, I think it's LifeLock at the back end or whatnot, but
Yeah.
identity management, you know, although also, I also all the time get the notifications from Norton that, you know,
Norton's the one I don't trust.
but then,
Microsoft offers a free virus protection that comes with with your PC.
Mhm.
So 90% of the time, I just stick with that because they're not asking for any money.
Typically, don't they have I mean, you get it for the first year and after that, they start hitting you
They're
with
paying for it now. It's part of Windows Update,
Wow.
Windows Defender, because they've also moved to Azure Policy. So they're actually setting up things that pre-scan before it ever gets to, like if you're using their Outlook on the web
Mhm.
or their hosted services, they're scanning all that before you ever touch it.
Yep, yep.
I have a question on Windows Defender. Is Windows Defender enough?
You can't have more than one at a time.
Well,
It's an antivirus.
okay, let me
So you can only
rephrase
have
the
one
question.
running on your system.
Is it adequate?
It's just like the others, he said.
Yeah.
Once it's posted and published, they send out a virus protection against it. It's already in the wild. Now, whether you picked it up or not, who knows? But it's there after the fact. It's not preventive, it's not,
They may have changed this. Like I said, I've been out of it for 5 years now, but
I'm still in it.
the typical, what it was back then, antivirus companies, when they became aware of a new virus, the time to roll that out into your updates, you know, for signatures and whatnot like that, at the time, I think it was 48 to 72 hours. So, doesn't sound like it longer now? Yeah, it'd be easy.
It's done by third-party companies and outside sources now, not by Microsoft directly.
Yeah, I know as far as vulnerabilities, when they're announced and when they're actually patched, it can be up to a month before that happens, so.
90 days.
Yeah. Yep,
It
yep.
doesn't mean you shouldn't do it to protect yourself, because most of those are company-wide, you know, companies stand more risk than the user at home. But it's still, some of the things they patch and update, not only with the updates, are hardware vulnerabilities that they know about that they don't tell you about necessarily up front.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
Definitely, I know that for a fact.
What about viruses coming in on a flash drive?
Oh, if you ever find a flash drive laying in the parking lot, be very wary on that before you go stick it in your computer, see what's on it. And that's also, no, you should be worried about it. And also if it comes from a trusted source, like a vendor or whatnot. Our company had got these little flash drives, that was back in secure computing days. They had gotten these flash drives they were handing out at these events. Turns out there was malware on the flash drive, so that was a nice little black eye. But so be very wary of that. Very easy to just,
That's
oh,
where
look
you
at
get it.
this. Oh, it's 128 gigs. Sweet. You stick it in your computer, see what's on it. So be careful. Absolutely.
I had, four of our line dance, instructors. I had made flash drives for them it contained the music and the steps, so that they could practice at home before they came here. And I would call those in every once in a while and update them, add new music, or fix music if there was problems in the earlier music. And the last time I went to do it, I got a warning. I don't think it was Windows Defender, I think it might have been from Norton, but anyhow, I got a warning that there was an issue with that device. So I took it out and I went down to one of my clunker computers and put it in and went into it. And the screen started to roll with numbers. It was like 1 and 0 mainly was 1 and 0s, but there were some other things that sort of flashed in there. And initially it started out, it was rolling right, every space was filled, every space in the thing was filled. And then it got slower, slower, slower. So I took that particular one and I smashed it on my workbench. Then I reloaded the computer again, dumped everything out of it and restarted it. But then I ran another one. I didn't actually run the other one. What happened is on the other one, I couldn't, it wasn't marked how many gigs it was. So I stuck it in the computer and went to properties, and I noticed it was full. I said, no matter what it is, it can't be full. I think we had like 3 gigs or something like that in the music. So I took that one out, and I also destroyed that one. I also belong to a TechNet of amateur radio guys that actually work in the computer. A lot of these guys are design engineers and all that kind of, a lot of them high-powered guys. But the good thing about it is I can always get an answer from them and get on the radio and say, hey, I've got this problem. What do you see here? What do you see here? And essentially, of the 3 that responded, 2 of them said absolutely destroy them. And the third one sort of went around the reformatted kind of thing. But anyhow, that was my experience. So then I quit doing it altogether.
So
I killed all of those.
the thing about formatting is if you put it into your computer and go to do the format, whatever's on there is already done its damage. So
If it's an actual virus.
yeah, if it's an actual virus.
Otherwise, it's not, it's a good idea that whenever you add new media or you're gonna be exchanging those things out, every time you go to refresh something on it, format it, low level format it, and then add what you want. That way you know that
Yeah.
only the content you want is there. Or buy a high-powered magnet. which also would be-
Joe, showing low battery on your phone.
Is it really? We'll do the best that we can.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I said, I could talk all kinds of things about security, but a lot of it, it's stuff like, you don't work at a corporation, so your web gateway, your web email security gateway, none of that's gonna be relevant to you. I could tell you about some of the different things. The last company I worked for was Cisco. That's where the whole unsubscribe came up. They charge extra for that service on their email gateways to filter the unsubscribe link that was underneath there. So that's how I learned about that, don't trust the unsubscribe, so. Any questions?
And how would you get rid of something if you can't unsubscribe? Give it back into that website?
How do you get your email?
Gmail,
Through Gmail?
yes.
You create
So you
rules.
always check it from a web browser. Well, Gmail, you kinda have to.
Yeah,
So you're always checking it from a web browser, so it's never really on your computer.
Oh.
It's still in the cloud when you're reading it.
oh, you wanna get rid of the email
It's just
itself?
when you respond to it, you can trigger things that you subscribe to it.
Well, you said at the end of that, Like, I'm
Sometimes at the
looking at an
very
email.
bottom.
Right, it says unsubscribe.
Yeah.
I don't wanna see this company emailing me anymore.
You can create a rule in Gmail to block that. You know, the real address and block
Report
that.
it as junk.
Instead of hitting the unsubscribe.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's in junk.
Yeah.
And then delete it every
Spam.
once.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I got very creative, although it started buying me because people started doing things, legitimate companies, like, I got tired of these, it'd always be with an exclamation point in the subject line. So I say, if you put an exclamation point, dump it in junk.
Bye-bye.
Well, yeah, now there's some other, you know, I'm like, oh crap, I do keep putting exclamation points now, you messed up my rule. But, and the rules, I believe, are top-down. So you could say, I want to allow this company, but if it's got an exclamation point, block it. So it would allow that in, that email, and go down the rules until it comes to one triggering, like the exclamation point, something like that. You can get creative. You said do some really crazy things with firewall rules, but. Oh, US, you know, you brought up another good point. People here, I would imagine you all have wireless routers? Wireless routers?
Yeah.
You ever play with the firewall?
No.
No, just let it at the defaults, huh? Which is typically gonna be good enough. And it depends, I always like to get the more expensive ones, strictly to the fact that if you ever go into logging on those things, at a certain point, I was desperate, I had to do a remote presentation from my lab, and the thing I had that would allow me access to that, I couldn't get it up and running in time for the presentation. So I opened up an RDP port. Very insecure, bad thing to do, but I made a crazy password for it. RDP, Remote Desktop Protocol. So I can access it from my computer in the presentation room into my lab, back home, so I could bring up, show the presentation. When I went and shut off the rule, because it's not something I wanted to leave open, I just for out of curiosity looked at the logs. I'd say within 15 minutes after I opened up that rule, I was getting hit, primarily from Iran, you know, because I'd see the IP addresses. I go dump it into, you know, the whois, whatever like that. And it's just amazing how quick they were on top of that, trying to get inside. Crazy stuff.
Iran, the PLO.
Hmm?
Iran, the PLO. they
Yeah,
did
Iran,
all of that.
PLO.
They hacked Microsoft email one time, and they got through it through the executives, and they actually brought us all in. They didn't broadcast it on email, they brought us all in for an in-person meeting saying, watch for this, watch for that, if you find it, we actually have people on site, we want to be notified. And it was the PLO, but it was through, even through all the firewall rules and everything else, it was an executive
Well,
who
you-
clicked on an email that he shouldn't.
The
So it does happen.
RSA was a big security company, you know, they were big on encryption, all those kind of things. So they got hacked, you know, gave them a big black eye indeed, but the way they got hacked was they had an email security gateway. And this email, that you would have a thing say, I'm not going to block it from the user, I'm gonna drop it into a quarantine for the user. And the user gets his quarantine messages every day. He sees this one like, oh no, I wanna see that, and he clicked on it. Well, it was a 0-day exploit on a PDF. It was basically it was tagged like upcoming, it was referring to the raises people were gonna get. So, oh yeah, I wanna see that, click, click, click. And that's how that whole thing happened there. So even smart people can do dumb things, so.
There's companies out there now that train and filter for that as well. One's pretty popular, it's right here in Clearwater, Florida, Novi Fort. They do email protection and filtering, and now they've gone public.
You know, I remember way back in the day, I used to do general security presentations, and one of the things I said, if you had a very limited budget and you can only spend money on one thing, user awareness training was the most valuable thing you could do. So I know my wife, Ms. Pamela over there, she's more cautious than I am on things. If something comes up and wants her to go, is this valid? Should I do this? And I'll go look. I'm like, yeah, you're cool. Go ahead. But yeah, just never trust anybody, even if you think you know them. If somebody sends you something.
Can't do it on your own.
Sometimes I listen to them, not very often. But actually, I just got something like that through Home Depot, but it wasn't Home Depot, and they were offering me 4 recliners and a fire pit for
Nice.
$89.99.
Nice. Send it to me.
Yeah.
You know,
Just kidding.
before computers
It'd be
came
about the
out,
size of what you've
they
got.
used to say, if it sounds too good,
It's true.
Yeah, it
Yes, too
is.
good.
they added it to computers, but people forgot the message.
Mhm.
All right. Anything else? Anybody got any interesting stories, questions?
No, I've been totally shot twice, where they encrypt your files,
No.
and no big deal, because I format the hard drive and put everything back on in 20 minutes.
We had a company.
Windows 10 and Windows 11 actually have a reset now.
Yeah.
That instead of wiping out the entire operating system, it'll just reset it back to factory default. You have to go back and install your applications and stuff like that, but it's not as hard as it used to be to recover from something like that. You can just go in and type in reset, tell it to save your data. It's pretty easy to walk through. Maybe we can do it in one of the classes here at one time, do a demo. So that if you do have to factory reset, you can factory reset but not lose everything. And it'll wipe out most of those problems and reinstall your applications and so forth.
We had
Instead of
a,
losing an entire day or several days and having to go find disk and restore everything because no more disk drives.
Oh.
You know, another hint, if you go into your uninstall, before you shut your
Program
computer
install.
off, check that date, the current date, and see if anything was installed.
Maybe we should have a few demos or classes like that, where to find it, how to look at it.
Because if you're going around doing something, and maybe you wanna download something, when you're done, go in and see if that's the only thing you downloaded. Because you could have something else on the same date that you loaded that, which means it slid in with it.
You can also get into, this is more deep dive, but you can get into the task manager, where you start task manager, and it'll pull up, show more details, and it'll show all of the processes and all the memory being used, or sometimes different tabs.
Looks like great.
So it does, but if something's
Sure.
consuming 100%,
Yeah.
you know that could be your potential problem, and that's what you're looking for. So you get in and figure out what's being used and consuming a lot.
You've
That'll
got
help you
more,
troubleshoot and dig
you've
down.
got more than one issue that you have to keep in mind. Your financial stuff, that's a horse of a different color. Got video cameras? That's a whole another issue. I've got remote devices. That's another issue. I sit here in Florida, I watch the cameras at the Fish and Game Club, I can get on the membership database, and I can get on the door system, all of the door controllers. Because I'll get a call, I couldn't get in the rifle range. Well, I go in and I look up find out if they're paid or not. If they're paid, I go look up their card information and see if they've got the right date, and I'll do a reset on them, if everything's legit. Everything is out there. Again, you're a little bit limited on how much you can hide it, because you still got a port to these things.
But you need to make sure you control the admin passwords and who has
The
it.
passwords too, but you gotta be a little creative with your port forwarding. We use numbers that aren't in anything generally, but still, somebody that's gonna randomly generate and add some of those things together quite quickly.
very true, very true. You were talking about the dates. I was working on a friend's computer that had gotten hacked. And I ran malware bytes, at the time it was a good McAfee's rootkit thing that would just, I ripped all kinds of stuff, cleaned all kinds of stuff, and there was still one dang annoying issue about what would come up when you opened the browser. So I'd observed the dates of all the other things that I had found, and it was all the same date. So I did a search on the computer and did search by file by date, and found 3 new other files. So I just deleted those and finally got rid of the issue. So
there's so many ways, because we're not fighting one battle. Part of the issue is protecting yourself, your financial records, because there's a group that's out looking for that. The ones that hold you hostage, or ransomware, they're gonna they're gonna encrypt your drive. If you're doing something, and all of a sudden you see things starting to slow down, it's a good idea to just hit the power button. It dumps every link that you're on, restart the machine, and then go in again. Like I say, look and see if anything's changed.
Interesting, you're talking about the crypto. This is just a anecdote thing, just kind of painful, not really funny, but we had a customer who was using our web gateway, but they were using a much older version for the whole company. And we were trying to convince them that stuff is just web filtering. URL, not even URL, it was basically IP address filtering. So we had gotten them halfway there with our new web gateways. They got hit with WannaCry, one of those or whatever like that, ransomware. And they had a NAS, basically a SharePoint. They had SharePoint, I believe. And this doesn't just encrypt what's on this system. It went out, reached out to every connected drive. That was massive. And they were like up and uproar. I thought we were filtering this. Well, it turns out it came in through half the hospital. They hadn't updated to the new stuff. The other stuff caught it and blocked it, but massive.
Carolyn, is that still off?
It says no battery again.
Yeah.
The adage of back it up, back it up, back it up.
Yeah.
And I'm a great user of thumb drives as well as USB hard drives.
Yep.
You got something, you install something, you got it running, you got everything, make a copy of it. Then if you do lose it, you start all over with that, and you only lose the data between the time.
Backup, yep. And if you use a backup program,
There's some things like Google Drive and OneDrive now that you select those files and it's automatically backing them
Sync
up
to the cloud.
so that they're accessible from anywhere, and those are point-to-point encrypted.
Yeah, but I still think the clouds are just as vulnerable as we are.
Those are point-to-point encrypted. They're very, very, very well protected. I can guarantee you of that. Well better than we protect our stuff.
absolutely. I mean, their reputation is riding on that.
Yeah.
You talk to major providers.
They guarantee it by backing up the business. If you lose business or data, they pay you.
Yeah. Amazon, Microsoft, I mean, all the cloud providers, especially the ones, that are providing, like corporate cloud computing. I just happen to be doing a cloud computing class right now, so, but they know the amount of security they put into that is really quite deep and more in depth than a lot of the big companies themselves. Believe me, I've been in some Fortune 500 companies. It makes me go,
Fortune 1000. We just
What about the banking industry? We
Bank-
felt we were secure with them.
the banks, they're
FDIC insured.
I mean, the bank's only gonna be, the security's only gonna be as good as the security team behind it. You can put all those wonderful tools and stuff in place, but you've gotta have a good team. Most of the banks I work with are very, as you would be, guess, very hyper security aware. The places I've seen where it's some of the worst is healthcare systems. I've worked with the Cleveland Clinic. Their security team was top notch. I mean, these guys were, their only problem was they were understaffed. They had like 6 people running the entire security for Cleveland Clinic. That was it. And schools, education system, but especially K through 12. It's almost like a hierarchy. If you're gonna be working for like a Fortune 100 company, or you're gonna be working at a bank, you're gonna get the best of the best up there. And if you can't do that, you go work here. If you can't do that at the bottom, if you can't get a job anywhere else, you can get a job, for a K through 12 security. Because, which doesn't sound like much, but there's a lot of PII and those,
There's not a lot of money they invest though, because they're working off of state budgets.
Yep.
That's the whole thing,
So-
it's how much money the company actually puts into their security.
It's a lot better now, but I first started in security about, in this kind of security, internet security about 22 years ago. I mean, you were just selling on the basic concepts of security. Gosh, dang, Kent State had your Unix servers exposed to the world. We do our updates. I'm
Well,
like,
we didn't have Active Directory and a few other things, so.
I mean, I remember that the only thing that prompted them to finally start doing web filtering was not because of security, because the bandwidth. They couldn't keep up the bandwidth 20 years ago with the students and everything like that. So that's when they started doing web filtering. But it's gotten a lot better now.
Financial institutions, your financial brokers, generally their information about users and some of their financial, what they call their domain controllers, those are tier 0. They're actually in a self-contained environment, and only certain people can log on to those, and they have to have machines that they can log on to through those. They have to make several hops to get into it. So they set it up so that banks and financial institutions in their record on this tier 0, tier 1, tier 2, and 3, who has access to what? Tier 0, there's only a very few people in the company who have that kind of access. So that's what they've set up for financial institutions. They're having problems moving and migrating to them to the cloud right now because they can't set up those spaces in the cloud. It's not a private network. So, and because it's connected to the cloud, it automatically violates the secure tier 0, so they can't do it. So a lot of banking institutions right now and financial institutions, they still have their own network centers just for that, and it's highly locked down, biometrics and half a dozen things to get in. So it's pretty well secured that way, at least on a corporate level.
True. And you brought up a good point. A lot of places, like banking, financial institutions,
They've got SEC guidelines, they still have
yeah,
to follow.
they've got regulatory compliance that says, nope, you ain't doing that.
And regular auditing.
That's it.
All right, very good. Thank you, Marty.
Hey, you're welcome.
Appreciate it.
You turn that off now?
It is off.
It's off.
Oh, okay.
Low battery.
On my microphone, that's a powered microphone that was sucking up power from
Oh, okay.
so
Sweet.
that's okay. We'll bring it up and look at it and see.
All right.
But it's enough to scare you when you start thinking about
Well,
it.
like I said, man, you think everything, you do your due diligence, you do everything right, and boom, somebody says, yeah, get your social security number like that.
Yeah. So what, if
Well, luckily here.
your grandmother
here,
was
they did it
alive,
with DocuSign, so that's all secure. Sorry.
if your grandmother was alive and she just bought a computer, what would your recommendations be for security?
Security? But, I mean,
Don't turn it on.
Yeah.
Don't
Grandma, you can't forget it.
I had this think, I'm thinking to myself, people worry about their like the password to get into your computer. Nobody's gonna become, black ops team climbing into your trailer in the middle of the night, try to break into your computer. So,
You're not that interested.
yeah, don't wear yourself out, on this security getting into the computer. The main damage, like I said, it can be done.
It's more about you giving your information away than it is somebody getting into your PC. and
Via the web or via email, the whole bit like that, so. But, if my grandmother was still alive, my God, she'd be like about 130 something, I think.
You just bought a new computer.
Well, I'd say at your age, don't give it in, just do whatever you want.
She'd probably wanna know how many channels. the
If it
kids-
was my mother or
Yeah.
grandmother, I would
Well, that's
probably recommend an iPad or a Chromebook, because that's just apps. And it's
Yeah.
so much easier
Yeah.
There you
than
go.
having to deal with a laptop and data and all of the other stuff.
We had an elderly woman here.
Depends on what you're gonna do with it. If you're checking your email and some Facebook, and if ordering Chewy.com,
Talking to the grandkids.
talking to the grandkids,
Yeah,
you
but
don't
we
need
had an elderly
you don't need a
woman who was
computer or a
doing that.
laptop.
And what happened was, she went to put her password in, and she got confused. So she tried to put it in again, and you know what's gonna happen. She reached that point where the axe fell. And I happened to be over at her house, and she said, hey, I got this problem with my iPad. So I looked at it, and I said, well, we need your password. She said, well, my daughter back in, I don't know, somewhere out east, she put this in for me, so I called the daughter. The daughter couldn't remember what the password was. And we finally did resolve it, but it took us several weeks to get it squared away.
Well, you
Remember-
could, if you've got some information, you could just request that the password, new password reset, and it'll generally change it, you can do that.
We'll never
That's
be,
also-
I don't think it actually
Too
gave
easy
us that
sometimes.
option.
Because if you know.
We
the
couldn't-
information,
we couldn't
you
get
can reset
in.
Somebody's password.
We couldn't get in at all.
we're never gonna be a paperless society, so long as we gotta write a password down and put it somewhere.
The
I
world's
got a list of my
simplest
billfold, Charlie, it's that long with passwords.
The world's simplest password, and nobody has ever guessed it. I don't know it. Capital I, don't, apostrophe T,
Yeah.
know it, question mark. You tell people all day long what your password is, and they're never gonna get it.
That's a good one. I
Just
like
for
that.
just for effect, I'll tell you a help desk story that I always like.
You're barking dog.
Guy calls the help desk and he says, my computer went black. The help desk analyst says, okay, well, did you check this and check that? And they go back and forth, and finally he says, well, when did this happen? It happened the same time the lights went out.
Is it plugged in?
Yeah.
He told the guy to put it, he got the box that came in, put it in the box and send it back. You're not smart enough to run it.
I used to tell people that all the time, we have 100 base cables, yeah, 10 days. Oh, my computer's running slow, so slow. Oh, it's because you got your coil, it's all coiled around in a circle. Here, let me fix this for you. You plug it in 100.
Oh, gee.
Thank God I was never one of those people.
Well, the sales
That's
pitch
why
you
they
gave
have-
me here too for helping them.
That's why they always blame the cabler. Because of you. It's always the cable.
Yeah.
Okay, gang, next week bring your favorite app, or your favorite program, or your favorite tips,
Homework.
and we'll do some sharing.
Yeah, if you send an email link on
Are you
it
talking
or an email question first, then we all know.
computer-based,
I'll come in a little
pad-based, or anything,
Mhm.
or phone,
Anything,
anything, okay.
yeah.